You don't have a thinking problem. You have a control problem. Your mind is not broken. It's just untrained. Right now, your thoughts are not working for you. They're working against you. They replay things that are already over. They imagine outcomes that haven't happened. They turn small moments into heavy pressure. And slowly, without you realizing it, they start shaping how you feel, how you act, and who you become. This is how most men lose control. Not in a big moment. Not in a visible failure. But quietly, inside their own mind. You wake up already thinking. Already tense. Already reacting to things that aren't even real. You hesitate before speaking. You overanalyze simple decisions. You doubt yourself, even when there's no reason to. And the worst part is, it feels normal. You've lived like this for so long. That chaos feels like your personality. But it's not. It's conditioning. Your mind has been trained to focus on the wrong things, to hold on to useless thoughts, to give attention where it should not. And now, it doesn't know how to stop. But here's the truth most people never realize. Your thoughts are not you. They're just patterns. And patterns can be broken. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew the mind could destroy you long before the world ever could. But they also knew something else. If you learn to control it, your mind becomes your strongest advantage. In this video, you're going to learn how to cut off toxic thoughts at the root, not by fighting them, not by suppressing them, but by stepping above them, by seeing them clearly, and by choosing what deserves your attention. Because once you take back control of your mind, you don't just think differently. You live differently. If you're still here, good. That means you're ready to take control. Toxic thoughts don't come from nowhere. They are built. Slowly. Repeatedly. Silently. Every time you overthink something small, you strengthen that pattern. Every time you replay a conversation, you train your mind to go back again. Every time you imagine the worst outcome, you teach your brain that fear deserves attention. And your brain listens. It doesn't judge what is useful. It only learns what is repeated. That's the problem. Most men think their thoughts are random. They're not. They are trained reactions. You didn't choose them consciously, but you created them through repetition. Think about it. If you constantly focus on what could go wrong, your mind will start generating more of it. If you constantly doubt yourself, your mind will make doubt automatic. Not because it's true, but because it's familiar. And the brain loves familiarity, even if it hurts you. This is why toxic thinking feels so real. Not because it's accurate, but because it's practiced. You've spent years reinforcing it, without even noticing. And now, it runs on autopilot. You wake up, and it's already there. You don't question it. You don't interrupt it. You just follow it. That's where control is lost. Not when the thought appears, but when you accept it without awareness. Here's the deeper issue. You trust your thoughts too much. You assume that because something appears in your mind, it must mean something. It doesn't. A thought is just a mental event. Like a sound passing by. Like a cloud moving across the sky. But instead of letting it pass, you grab it. You analyze it. You expand it. You build a story around it. And suddenly, something small becomes heavy. Something meaningless becomes personal. This is how pressure is created. Not by reality, but by interpretation. The Stoics saw this clearly. They didn't try to eliminate thoughts. They changed their relationship with them. They understood that the first thought is not under your control, but the second one is. The reaction is. The attention is. And that's where power begins. Right now, your mind reacts too fast. There is no space. Thought appears, right pointing arrow, reaction happens, right pointing arrow, emotion follows. Instantly. No filter. No pause. That's why everything feels overwhelming. Because everything is being processed. as if it matters. But most of it doesn't. Most of your thoughts are noise. Old memories, imagined futures, random fears, pointless comparisons. None of them require your attention. But you give it anyway. And that's why they grow. Because attention is fuel. Whatever you feed, expands. Whatever you ignore, weakens. It's that simple. But here's the part most people avoid. You are responsible for what you feed. Not for what appears, but for what you continue. This is where discipline starts. Not in controlling thoughts, but in refusing to participate in useless ones. And once you see this clearly, everything shifts. Because now, you stop blaming your mind, and you start training it. There is one principle in Stoicism that changes everything. Not your habits, not your environment, not your emotions, your perception. The Stoics believed this. You don't suffer because of events. You suffer because of how you interpret them. That's the root, not the world. Your mind. Right now, something happens. A message gets ignored. A mistake appears. Someone looks at you differently. Immediately, your mind reacts. You don't see the event. You see your interpretation of it. And that interpretation is often negative. Why? Because your mind is trained that way. It fills gaps with assumptions. It jumps to conclusions. It protects you by expecting the worst. But here's the problem. You don't question it. You treat your interpretation as reality. And that's where suffering begins. The Stoics did something different. They created a gap, a space between the event and their judgment. And inside that space, they asked a simple question. Is this actually bad, or am I making it bad? That question is powerful. Because most of the time, nothing is actually wrong. It's neutral. But your mind adds meaning. It labels things as failure, embarrassment, danger. And once the label is there, the emotion follows. Fear, stress, anxiety. But if you remove the label, what remains? Just an event. Simple, neutral, light. This is the discipline. Not controlling the world. Controlling interpretation. Think about it carefully. Two men experience the same situation. One breaks. One stays calm. The difference is not the situation. It's the meaning they assign to it. That's power. And that power is available to you. Right now. Every toxic thought you have is built on interpretation, not fact. You think, this is bad. This means something about me. This will go wrong. But those are not truths. They are judgments. And judgments can be changed. This is what separates a weak mind from a strong one. A weak mind reacts automatically. A strong mind examines first. It pauses. It looks at the thought. And instead of diving into it, it steps back. It questions it. It strips it down. Until nothing unnecessary remains. That's clarity. And clarity kills toxicity. Because most toxic thoughts cannot survive being questioned. They rely on speed. They rely on emotion. They rely on your lack of awareness. Once you slow down, they lose power. This is why Stoicism is not about being emotionless. It's about being precise. You don't blindly accept what your mind tells you. You investigate it. You filter it. You decide what is valid and what is not. And over time, your mind changes. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped feeding it false meaning. This is the principle. Simple, but not easy. Because it requires awareness. And awareness requires discipline. But once you build it, something shifts permanently. You stop being dragged by thoughts. You start standing above them. And from that position, you finally have control. Your mind doesn't control itself. It follows direction. And that direction is your attention. Where you place your focus, your mind builds. Where you return your focus, your mind strengthens. This is the mechanism. Not philosophy. Not motivation. Just cause and effect. Right now, your attention is undisciplined. It jumps from thought to thought, from fear to memory, from one imagined scenario to another. No control, no filter. That's why your mind feels heavy. Not because there's too much happening, but because you're giving attention to everything. Every random thought gets processed. Every doubt gets explored. Every negative idea gets expanded. You are not choosing what to think about. You are reacting to whatever appears. And that's the problem. Because attention is not neutral. It is fuel. Whatever you focus on grows. Even if it's useless. Even if it's harmful. Think about it. A small thought appears. What if I fail? That's it, just one line. But then you engage. You analyze it. You imagine outcomes. You replay scenarios. And suddenly, a tiny thought becomes a heavy mental weight. Not because it was strong, but because you fed it. This is how toxic thinking expands. Not by force, but by attention. So the solution is not complicated. You don't need to control every thought. You need to control what gets attention. The moment a thought appears, you have a choice. Most people don't see it, because it happens fast. But it's there. A small gap. And inside that gap, you decide, do I follow this or not? That decision is everything. If you follow it, you enter the loop. If you don't, it fades. That's the rule. Simple, but difficult to apply without awareness. So here's what you do. When a toxic thought appears, don't fight it. Fighting means engagement. Don't analyze it. Analysis gives it energy. Don't suppress it. Suppression makes it stronger later. Instead, ignore it. Let it exist without participation. Bring your attention somewhere else. Your breath, your body, your surroundings. Something real, something present. At first, this feels weak, because you're used to reacting. You feel like you're avoiding the thought. But you're not. You're refusing to feed it. And that's strength. Because attention is limited. You can't focus on everything. So when you choose to focus on the present, you automatically remove energy from the unnecessary. Over time, your mind adapts. It learns a new pattern. These thoughts don't get attention anymore. And slowly, they stop appearing as often. Not because you forced them out, but because they are no longer useful to the system. This is how you reprogram your mind. Not through force, through attention control. And here's the shift you need to understand. You don't control thoughts. You control focus. And focus controls everything else. This is why disciplined men are calm. Not because they have fewer thoughts, but because they ignore most of them. They don't waste attention. They don't chase every idea. They stay grounded, present, sharp. And that's where clarity comes from. Not from silence, but from control. Knowing is not enough. If you don't train your mind, it will go back to old patterns. So now, you need a system. Something simple. Something repeatable. Something you can use in real time. Not theory. Practice. Here is the method. 4 steps. You use it every time a toxic thought appears. No exception. Step 1. Notice. This is where most people fail. They don't catch the thought early. They realize it after they've already been thinking for minutes. After the emotion has already built. After the pressure is already there. That's too late. You need to catch it at the beginning. The moment it appears. A small signal. A shift in your mind. A slight tension. That's your entry point. And the faster you notice, the easier it is to stop. Step 2. Label. Once you see the thought, don't analyze it. Don't argue with it. Just name it. This is useless thinking. That's it. Clear, simple, direct. You are not trying to understand it. You are identifying it. And this creates distance. Because now, you are not inside the thought. You are observing it. That shift is critical. Step 3. Cut. Now you stop the process. Immediately. No continuation. No, just one more second. You don't finish the thought. You don't complete the scenario. You cut it. Right there. This is where discipline shows. Because your mind will try to pull you back. It will say, wait, just think a little more. Don't. That's the trap. The moment you continue, you lose control again. So you cut it. Clean. Fast. No hesitation. Step 4. Replace. This is the part most people ignore. They stop the thought, but leave a vacuum. And the mind hates empty space. So it brings the thought back. That's why you need replacement. Not with another thought. With action. Something physical. Something real. Move your body. Stand up. Walk. Take a breath. Focus on a task. Anything that brings you back to reality. This breaks the loop. Completely. Now here's the key. You don't do this once. You repeat it. Again and again. Every time. That's how the system works. Thought appears, right pointing arrow, you notice, right pointing arrow, you label, right pointing arrow, you cut, right pointing arrow, you replace. Over and over. At first, it feels forced. You forget sometimes. You react automatically. That's normal. But if you stay consistent, something starts to change. You catch thoughts faster. You react less. You feel lighter. Because the loop is breaking. And once the loop breaks, the mind loses its old power. This is where most men give up. Because it's not exciting. It's not dramatic. It's discipline. Quiet, repetitive, controlled. But this is what creates real change. Not motivation. Not inspiration. Training. Daily training. You are not trying to eliminate thoughts. You are teaching your mind what deserves attention and what doesn't. That's it. Simple system. But powerful if you actually use it. Most men think their problem is outside. Work, money, people, circumstances. But the real problem is internal noise. Uncontrolled, constant, exhausting. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Your mind doesn't care about your peace. It cares about stimulation. It wants to think, to analyze, to react, even when it hurts you, even when it drains you. Because thinking has become a habit, not a tool. And when thinking becomes a habit, silence feels uncomfortable. Stillness feels unnatural. You start to feel like something is missing when your mind is calm. So you create noise again. Without realizing it, you look for something to worry about, something to analyze, something to replay. And just like that, you're back in the loop. This is why most people can't escape toxic thoughts. Not because they are weak, but because they are addicted. Addicted to thinking. Addicted to internal stimulation. The Stoics saw this clearly. They didn't try to feel better. They trained themselves to need less mental noise. They became comfortable with stillness, with silence, with clarity. And that's rare. Because in a noisy mind, stillness feels like emptiness. But in a disciplined mind, stillness feels like control. That's the shift. You're not trying to add something new. You're removing what's unnecessary. Most of your thoughts are not needed. They don't solve anything. They don't improve anything. They don't protect you. They just repeat. Old memories. Imagined futures. Pointless scenarios. And every time you engage with them, you reinforce the loop. But if you step back, if you stop feeding them, something interesting happens. At first, there is silence. And that silence feels strange. Almost uncomfortable. Because you're not used to it. But if you stay there, if you don't rush to fill it, that silence becomes clarity. You start to see things as they are, not as your mind exaggerates them. You respond instead of reacting. You act instead of hesitating. You move forward without carrying unnecessary weight. This is why control of the mind is powerful. Not because it makes you smarter, but because it removes what slows you down. Most people try to improve their thinking. Add more ideas, more strategies, more knowledge. But Stoicism does the opposite. It subtracts. It removes noise, until only what matters remains. And when that happens, your mind becomes quiet, not empty, focused, sharp, ready. This is what real control looks like. Not constant thinking, but the ability to stop. This is where everything becomes real. Not theory, not ideas, not understanding, but daily control. Because none of this matters if it doesn't show up in your life. You don't become disciplined in one moment. You become disciplined in small moments. Repeated, quietly, every day. It starts in the morning. Before anything happens. Before the world pulls your attention away. You notice your state. Is your mind already racing? Is it already thinking ahead? If it is, you don't follow it. You slow it down. You bring your focus back. To your breath. To your body. To the present. That's your first win. Small, but important. Then the day begins. Situations appear. People talk. Things go wrong. Unexpected moments happen. And your mind reacts. As it always has. But now, you see it. That's the difference. You catch the thought. Right when it starts. Not after it grows. You feel the pull, but you don't follow. You pause. Just for a second. And in that second, you decide, is this worth my attention? Most of the time, it isn't. So you let it go. Not dramatically. Not forcefully. Just no engagement. And you move on. Back to what matters. Your work. Your actions. Your direction. This is how control looks in real life. Not perfect. Not constant. But intentional. You will still have bad thoughts. You will still feel pressure. You will still catch yourself slipping. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you're training. Every time you notice, you improve. Every time you cut a thought early, you get stronger. Every time you choose focus over reaction, you take control back. And slowly, something changes. You don't get pulled as easily. You don't overreact as often. You don't carry unnecessary weight. You become lighter, clearer, more grounded. People will notice it, not because you say anything, but because of how you move. Calm, direct, unbothered. And here's the important part. This is not suppression. You are not hiding thoughts. You are choosing which ones deserve space. That's control. And over time, this becomes your default. Not reacting, but deciding. Not following every thought, but leading your mind. This is when Stoicism becomes real. Not something you watch. Something you live. There will always be thoughts. That never changes. Your mind will still produce ideas. It will still react. It will still try to pull you in different directions. That's its nature. But now, you see it differently. You no longer believe everything it says. You no longer follow every impulse. You no longer treat every thought as important. And that changes everything. Because control was never about silence. It was about separation. The ability to stand apart from your own mind. And observe it clearly. Without being dragged by it. Without being defined by it. Most people never reach this point. They spend their entire lives reacting. Thinking more. Worrying more. Carrying more. And they call it normal. But you don't have to live like that. You've seen the pattern. You understand the mechanism. Now you have the choice. Every single day. To either fall back into noise. Or stay in control. And the difference is small. Almost invisible. A pause. A decision. A shift in attention. That's it. But repeated over time, it becomes your identity. You become the man who doesn't overreact. The man who doesn't get lost in his thoughts. The man who stays grounded, even when things are uncertain. Not because life is easier, but because your mind is stronger. And strength like that is quiet. It doesn't need to prove anything. It doesn't need validation. It simply exists. Steady, controlled, present. This is what Stoicism gives you. Not motivation, not temporary relief, but stability. A foundation that doesn't break under pressure. And once you build that, everything else becomes easier. Decisions become clearer. Actions become sharper. Your energy stops being wasted on things that don't matter. And your life starts moving forward again. Not fast, but clean, direct, intentional. So from this point on, pay attention to your mind. Not to judge it, but to guide it. Because the moment you stop letting your thoughts control you is the moment you take your life back.